Someone who I've gotten to meet and discuss things with is Ian Hodder, who was at Stanford for many years, many decades before he retired, one of the deans, one of the great archaeologists of Turkey. He excavated a number of sites in his career in modern Turkey, and he had to say when Gobekli Tepe was discovered and the implications of it are that it's unbelievably big and amazing at a ridiculously early date. Huge, great stones and fantastic, highly refined art. Many people think that it changes everything. Here's the important point. It overturns the whole apple cart. All our theories were wrong. And I think that is so good for him as a standard conventional academic to admit that Gobekli Tepe really changes how we have to think about early civilization. So it's an incredible site. It has these huge megalithic stone circles. Close to 24 have now been not excavated, but recovered, I shouldn't say recovered, been found using various geophysical methods. Several have been excavated, about 5 have been excavated. And when you look at it from the air, it has these ring-type features. So think of Stonehenge and other henges, which are ring-type features, but Gobekli Tepe shares that characteristic. But the stones, unlike Stonehenge, I love Stonehenge, but Stonehenge and structures like that are these big, crude, rough blocks. Gobekli Tepe, and here I am in May 2010, and you can see one of the rings behind me, known as Enclosure C. Gobekli Tepe is beautifully carved limestone pillars with reliefs on them. There's carvings that go with it. So it's an incredible structure. It's a UNESCO structure now, or it's a UNESCO heritage site, and they put an awning over it. I'm just going to flip through some slides just to give you a sense of Gobekli Tepe. These are from different times that Katie, my wife, and I have visited. So sometimes with the awning, without the awning, we've seen it a number of times. But you get these beautiful T-shaped pillars. These are pillars carved from limestone, and each pillar is a solid block of limestone. Beautifully carved with carvings on them. This one, if you look at it on the right, you can see that's an arm. So they're anthropomorphic. Some of them are anthropomorphic with an arm and a hand and a little animal under its belt. Here, this is known as Enclosure C. And notice the, again, relief carving, the bas relief carving. And this is sometimes known as the beast. This is a beautiful animal, in my opinion, that is carved into it. It's not attached to it. They planned this. This is all one piece. This is part of the pillar. This is incredibly sophisticated for being 12,000 years old. Archaeologists off the record who I've questioned about have suggested, well, if they just found it in isolation, it might be 600 BC by their estimate, or maybe 1,000 BC or BCE by their estimate, not 12,000 years ago, not approximately 10,000 BCE. So it's really out of place. This is sometimes known as a vulture pillar. I won't try to get into interpretations of it now. Some of the other pillars with extinct aurochs possibly on it, etc. So some of these animals may actually be extinct animals that go back to the end of the last ice age, which is incredible. The dating on this site, I want to say, is really good. It's really well controlled. Here's another, just to give you a sense of these pillars. Another picture. It is very well controlled. It's in north. When I say well controlled, the dating is very well controlled because we have good stratigraphic data. We have radiocarbon data on various plasters that were used at one point, and there is fibers, various other isotopes that go back actually to the end of the Younger Dryas as the end of the last ice age. The site itself is in northern Mesopotamia, which is sometimes referred to as the biblical Eden. because when you read the Judeo-Christian Bible, it talks about the Tigris and Euphrates and where Eden is relative to those rivers, and some people would place it in northern Mesopotamia. I'm not saying the Garden of Eden necessarily, but the general area, which I think is interesting. And as I said, the initial dating for Gobekli Tepe, according to Klaus Schmidt, was even earlier than my initial dating for the origins of the Sphinx. Something else that's been found, and he's one of my favorites, maybe my favorite statue from antiquity, is known as Urfa Man. He was found in the city of Urfa, Shanli Urfa, which Gobekli Tepe is maybe a half-hour drive from Urfa itself. And when they do construction projects, when they do, new housing or urban development, etc., they often find archaeological antiquities and archaeological sites, including the strata, including going back to Gobekli Tepe time. So this is how Urfa Man was found. On the left, he is in his new abode in the modern museum. On the right, that's him with me for scale when in the old museum. I had a chance to discuss things with the late Professor Klaus Schmidt when we were there. That's me and Schmidt discussing things. That's John Anthony West in the foreground. And he assured me, because I went there very skeptical, even though I'd love something to fit my working hypothesis, I'm always skeptical about new data. So I wanted to know this really goes back 12,000 years. And he convinced me, and I've, of course, read all the papers and technical literature ever since, that yes, there's really good controls, I mentioned, on the dating, stratigraphic control. There's mineral deposits that were formed that can be dated because the entire site was intentionally buried. I'll come back to that. And then basically little stalactites, little stalagmites form in the deposits once it was buried, and those can be dated. The pillars themselves are absolutely incredible. They're ornately carved, as I mentioned. You can see one of them here. This is enclosure D, one of the most famous pillars, and it has arms and a belt, et cetera, and a loincloth, and they were set in a form of concrete, so incredibly sophisticated.